Welcome back to Season 2 of Tactics, the show where we break down not just the strategies, but the exact actions that we are taking to drive predictable, profitable growth for our partners. And today we are joined by the man you may know from making meta videos on YouTube. Max Rosewater is going to be breaking down examples of what we call model breaking moments. At CTC, there's a phrase that we use often, which is that great strategy is simply the gap between your present state and a desired future reality. And that bridge is often best built through incredible moments that drive disproportionate return. And so today, in an episode we are calling The Bridge, Max is going to break down exactly how you can build those for your business. As always, thank you to our partners at Sorrel and Dataships for sponsoring this series. I'll be back later to tell you more about what makes them awesome partners and a great opportunity for your business. But for now, here's Max Rosewater bringing you The Bridge.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through this deck called The Bridge. This deck serves as a comprehensive resource of examples of model breaking moments or marketing moments that we've helped plan and execute for the different brands that we've worked with and helped to achieve year-over-year growth. What I want to reiterate before we get started is when you create a forecast or a model, the goal is to create a model that is grounded in what's most likely to occur based on the historical patterns and seasonality of your business. But there's usually a difference between what is most likely to occur and what you actually want to occur. And that is where we create the bridge, which is going to help bridge the gap between those two things, between what's most likely to occur and what you actually want to occur. And you need to plan specific marketing actions that are grounded in historical data in order to justify what revenue growth you are trying to achieve. So let's dive into specific examples. And what I hope you get out of this video is inspiration so that you can go and bulk up your marketing calendar and have the best ability to achieve your goals. If you followed CTC's content for a long time, you've probably heard of the 4 peaks theory or a 4 peaks approach to marketing calendar planning. And what most marketing calendars look like is only having 2 peaks planned throughout the entire year, which are substantial revenue peaks above the norm. Usually they're tied to some sort of cultural moment like Mother's Day, Father's Day, Valentine's Day, or BFCM. And what we want to do is try to create new revenue peaks so that we can have additional moments that help us realize more revenue throughout the year. So we don't get caught in a situation like this where we have cash flow issues and are just in a lull period where we're not able to generate as much revenue as we need to grow the business. Let's dive straight into examples of model breaking moments that you can use for your own business. First, we're going to dive straight into Born Primitive. This is the only example brand that we're going to actually show you what the brand is. Otherwise, we're going to have to keep it anonymous, but you've probably heard this many times and we've shared data from this campaign on the channel before. But these are actually 3 campaign examples that are all product launches tied to a specific cultural moment that really tie into the desire of the target audience, which is very important. This launch was a limited edition shoe surrounding the 80th anniversary of D-Day and connected a new product to a story that will get attention from their core audience and also drive acquisition and, of course, retention at the same time. New customer revenue was up 121% during this launch at a 68% higher AMER, and returning revenue was up 71%. Another example was a launch of 2 new limited edition shoes surrounding the election that help offset an expected negative impact from the election, which usually we see CPMs like skyrocket during an election, because usually the election, the candidates will be running tons of advertising. It'll shoot up acquisition costs, and generally consumer sentiment may be down during that period. That's generally what we see from historical trends. And so during this moment, they were able to increase new revenue 80% at a 2% higher AMER, and returning revenue was up 12%. So really strong performance from this campaign. And lastly, they had a veterans medical debt payoff moment where they donated a portion of sales and profit directly to veterans to help pay off $5 million in veterans medical debt surrounding Veterans Day of 2024. New revenue was up 201% during this period at a 45% higher AMER, and returning customer revenue was up 213%. Something else to note is there was a 434% day-over-day increase in traffic during their Fox and Friends appearance announcing that campaign. So they had a huge jump from organic traffic as well from this moment that they fully created themselves. Next, let's talk about an example that's actually easier to implement for pretty much any brand. It's something that's a lot easier to develop, not as complex, and not surrounding a specific cultural moment. And what this is a summer sweepstakes giveaway. I've consistently seen giveaways perform quite well for many brands. And what I'll give you as a pro tip is the higher value the item is that you're giving away, the better you are going to have success from the campaign.
All right, if you've been following me for a while, you know I believe the real leverage in D2C growth today isn't happening just in your ad account. It's upstream to that. It's about who you are as a brand. And one of the best brand building activities that you can run is influencer marketing. And I don't just mean paying people to post for you or sending some famous people product. I mean building an owned influencer community, one that promotes you on repeat and drives relentless social proof. The best tool I found to do that is called Sorrel. Sorrel handles everything, seriously, end to end. You can discover any creator you want so they can help you define the ideal partners. You can automate all of your outreach at scale. It's crazy. Every communication, every relationship, all visible in one spot. It integrates with Shopify so you can ship the products really easily. You can also track all of your performance with their built-in tools. And then you can monitor every mention on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube through their social listening platform. It's like HubSpot for influencer marketing. If you're serious about brand growth this year, you need to check it out. Head to getsorrel.com. We'll drop a link in the show notes and tell them Taylor sent you. I'll hook you up with a little love. Again, that's getsorrel.com, and build your own influencer community today.
Next, let's talk about a moment that's much easier to plan on the marketing calendar, and it doesn't have to be necessarily tied to a cultural moment. What we did for this brand was a summer sweepstakes giveaway. It was a purchase entry giveaway for a different product every month that ran throughout the duration of the summer. And each month, a winner got a prize worth around $4,000. This led to 49.5% top line growth year over year, a 23.4% lift in AMER, and 86.9% new customer revenue growth. And this is actually planned during a normally very slow period of the year. So you can see over here, typically summer for this brand is very flat. And we were able to create a stair step of revenue into the largest revenue month of the entire brand's history just because they started running this giveaway. There was no other new product drop. It was just this giveaway running through our paid acquisition channel, and which was Meta in particular. And this is an example of something very simple you can implement that could potentially change the game for your brand's trajectory of growth. Also, another very easy example to implement is a 24 for 24 sale. This would be a calendar or brand moment. And this was a full list email send that gave 24% off for 24 hours for an eyewear brand. And it was actually like a last second thing that we did. It was just a text-based email, and it shows you how simple this was. And it created the largest revenue day of that brand's entire year, actually. It created $32,000 in order revenue in one day, $25,689 in new customer revenue, primarily driven via email, and $6,300 in returning revenue. And just to put it in context, an average new revenue day is around $5,000 for this brand, and average returning is around $1,000. Another example is an email and SMS moment, which was a special offer that ran during the Super Bowl. And this is actually stolen from Twitter from Nate Lagos. So shout out to Nate. Awesome marketer, love his podcast. And this led to one of the largest revenue per hour days in the history of his brand, which is Original Grain. And Original Grain ran this cleverly during the Super Bowl because, of course, they can't afford Super Bowl commercials, and they sent it out during the start of halftime. So they're tying it to a cultural moment and giving a special offer where they know their target audience is going to be kind of hot and ready to buy. So this was a great example and something that I've actually tested across several brands, which was directly inspired by this idea, and it's worked wonders for many different examples. Next, another good sale or offer idea is to run a tiered discount incentive. But what I want you to do, if you've never run this before, is to look at your average order value broken down into an AOV histogram and basically create columns of different buckets of your average order values. You can see that depicted here, where we're looking at different ranges of AOVs and the new customer order count against that AOV. And what we can see here is we were able to increase or double the amount of orders that were over $200 just by simply changing the tier percentage off offer that we set for orders above $200. And because we set the tiered discount there, we were able to maintain conversion rate while pushing more people into that higher average order value bucket, which led to substantial revenue growth year over year for the same type of offer, just a different tiered threshold for that offer realization. Next, we're going to talk about influencer strategies connected to a product launch. This example was for an athletic apparel brand. They did an influencer activation and product drop for a Pilates and wellness brand, and they used influencers to promote a signature product line that was created to align with consumer use cases. This led to an 150% lift in day-over-day revenue and 50% improvement in paid efficiency. What they did here as the key tactics was develop a new product that aligned to their consumer, and then also use influencers within that ad creative and also in website assets to create continuity between the ad and the landing page experience, which is something that you see a lot of people do. It's something big that Fermat is doing right now in order to create a really strong holistic experience between the ad and the landing page. And this also was on trend because the product drop showcased against a clear use case that drove urgency as the main driver for this moment, with influencers helping to amplify that core message. And I think the most important piece here is that the influencers need to, of course, identify with your target audience very strongly.
You guys have probably heard me say that I think LTV is a genetic attribute for most brands, meaning it's really hard to move with just marketing. But I want to show you something that I think can have a dramatic effect on your LTV today. And it starts right here on your checkout page. So we all know this little box right here that we're hoping our customers check to receive email and SMS from us, right? When we build the checkout page, we have to wrestle with, do we pre-check it? Do we not? And of course, that's a consideration for both compliance and opt-in rates. So we know that if you don't check it, right, you have a high level of compliance, low risk of causing any legal issues, but the opt-in rates are super low. They can be as low as 4%. Whereas if you pre-check it, you might get an opt-in rate of up to 54%, but you're running a lot of compliance risk depending on where the customer is around the world. Well, with data ships, they actually do dynamic consent collection, where they recognize where the customer is from, ensure that you are following and complying with local law, and actually increasing the consent by helping the customer to be sure that they're being considered in the process. Now, why is this so important? Because the LTV of customers that do and do not subscribe is wildly different. Look at this data from DataShips. They see that a CLV, so customer lifetime value, in apparel as an example, for a non-subscribed customer is $47, where it's more than double for those that subscribe. Just checking that little box for a small subset of customers can massively increase the CLV of your cohorts. But don't take my word for it. Here's what they'll do. If you go speak to DataShips right now, they'll help you do an analysis to compare the value of an opted-in versus an opted-out customer. They'll then help you set up an A/B test of a dynamically collected or dynamic consent application to figure out how much you can improve the process, and they'll track the incremental revenue generated from that process. It's a win-win. Incremental LTV off of your customers by increasing your compliance. Say less. DataShips, check them out.
Here's another influencer drop example where this US fragrance brand partnered with an influencer named Daryl Ann, and this specific influencer drop created one of the largest moments for their brand's history. And it's interesting because they've been running this same intro offer that they ran through this influencer through a bunch of other influencers. But the key was that those other influencers likely didn't connect enough with their target audience. So it's also highlighting a very important point here that finding the correct influencer that has a big enough audience, that also has a really engaged audience that trusts that influencer enough to make a buying decision based on their recommendation. That's the most important point when you're partnering with an influencer. And they were able to outperform the model by 39% in this example, which was huge for them. All right, next we're going to talk about a brand and product collaboration. There's a few points I want to make here. In this specific example, these two brands partnered together and they were able to create a 3 to 4x revenue on launch day without any paid media support, which is honestly insane. And it's because they were able to plan out and find a partnership between their two brands that really connected to each other's target audiences. And because of this synergy between the two existing audiences, two existing e-commerce brands collaborating together, they were able to create a large shared revenue growth day. And this is something that you can do without even doing an actual product collaboration. In this case, they created high ticket products together. But you can also do this just in general through an email swap. For example, if you want to switch email lists or be able to shout each other out on your Instagram page, there's a lot of cool examples, or branded partnership ads on Instagram that you can run this type of a strategy and see a substantial growth in revenue because you're able to tap into another brand's audience. All right, last but not least, this is probably my personal favorite example because I think it highlights something really important for brands is that this golf apparel brand was able to have a new product launch of a key product category that they didn't currently have. What they identified was that most brands in their niche had an essential part of their category in footwear, and they didn't currently have this. And so it was a clear and easy product expansion that aligned with their target audience to capture some more of the market share that they weren't currently tapping into. And the launch drove 35% improvement in their customer acquisition cost, which was huge for them, and also the second highest customer acquisition revenue month in their brand's history, simply because they identified a gap in somewhere that they can action against in order to create growth that they're looking for. Awesome example and something that every brand should be looking into in order to create revenue growth for their business. All right, and that's it for this video. Thanks so much for watching if you stuck around till the end. And I hope that this video inspired you and gave you lots of ideas where you can look and identify gaps on your marketing calendar and fill in those gaps with moments that will drive revenue and create the year-over-year growth that you're looking for your business. That's it, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks.